In this video, we'll speak about how to create a JavaScript object using const, and then we'll talk about what const mean. So at the moment, I've only got a h2 element, and I've also got a paragraph with associated with an ID called q1 and just some text called question1. And this is this HTML page is also linked to an external CSS file that's in the same folder. And I've just got some style that I have from previous video, and then an external JavaScript file which is not doing anything yet. So let's go ahead and start talking about how to create a JavaScript object and why do we declare it as const. So an object is a variable that is best declared using const, since we don't want to reassign it later on in our program. So we started by creating the object, and I've spelled it wrong. Using the curly braces, we use commas to separate properties out. Let's start with that. Yeah, so we start off with the object name. So I'm just gonna call this, so we'll start off by const as we agreed. So we'll start declaring the object as const, and we also give our object a name. So I'm just gonna call this MCQ. And then as soon as we create these curly braces, that's object creation. But the object is empty, so we wanna start adding properties to it. So you can add properties, so let's just leave them blank like this, but you can separate properties using commas, and you can add as many properties depending on what you need to have for your object. And each property is got a name and a value, and you separate those with a colon. So we separate properties using commas. Last one is optional, so I don't really need, if I'm finished, I don't need the last one. And then each property has a name and a value separated with a colon. So over here I would have something like name and then a value like this, usually, depending if I wanted my value to be a string, so something like that. So for this object, I only want two properties. I want my first property to be a question, so that's the name of my property, and the value would be a question. So from the last video we did on HTML and CSS, the question was, what is the fastest form of transportation? I think that's how you spell things. Which is the fastest form of transportation, so that's the value. So this is my first property, and I can always I need the curly brace. I can always put things on separate lines. I might leave that one there actually, and this way I can add, I mean it reads better like this. And my second property, the name would be answer, and the value would be whatever the answer I'd like, which would be plain. I think the plain is the fastest, and that's it. So I can put a comma there. It's not necessary, that's why I said here it's optional to have that last comma. Alright, so that's the object, that's the whole object. Now it's got two properties, a question and an answer. Let's look at how we can access these before we start speaking about what it means that we've done this or declared it as constant. We can access that property using the object name followed by the dot, then the property name. So let's say MCQ. Now I'd like that, so it'll be like this, MCQ dot, let's say I want the question. Now let's say that I want the question, this question, to be displayed here. So I can actually, using this ID, I can use inner.html to display the question in this space. So let's do that. So we can use the document and access the get element by ID, and using that ID, which was q1, and dot inner HTML is equal to whatever that question was. So let's save, and refresh. Okay, I need to actually inspect, because if I've got an issue with my JavaScript, so there must be something. So here it's saying that it's missing a property after ID, and missing a property. Oh, it's missing a, sorry, that should not be a, I was just saying, should be a colon, so I've actually written it somewhere here. Okay. Now we got the question displayed, which is the fastest form of transportation. If you wanted to keep this title here, question 1, all you need to do is add a plus. So the plus will concatenate, we'll keep whatever's sitting there and concatenate whatever we want next with the existing value. So if I save and refresh, I have it like this. I can even display the answer. So I can add more to what we want. So I can say the correct answer is plus, again, object name mcq.answer. So we have the correct answers plain. I can add a break there, a HTML break. So what it'll do is it'll just put it on a separate line. So that's one way of accessing the object's properties. Alternatively, we can even access it like we would with an array. So let's just say that I want to get rid of this part here. And the correct answer. So what we can do is use the square brackets. So that works like the index. And just make sure it's a string. And then refresh. So now I've got, this is coming from the second one, whereas the first one is coming from here. All right. So what else can we do? We can also change the values of our existing properties. Let's say that I thought the answer should be bus, not plain, or maybe plain wasn't one of the options and I wanted to change that. So we can always say mcq dot answer is equal to bus. And let's display that again. Oh. And I've got a problem there. MCQ, not MS. Okay. Right, so this one also helps us see things better. Like I can even get more details here. All right. Now we have bus. I might reduce the size of my font, make it maybe 24. Okay, that looks better. All right. And what else do we have? Okay, then display again. Or we can even add a new property. Let's just say that I want to like add something, another property to my object. I can say mcq.options, so that would be the new name. So that would be the name, the new name to my property. And now I can give it a value. Now the value doesn't necessarily have to be a string. I can make it an integer, I can make it a float or boolean. But let's say I can even make it an array of options. And from our previous content of HTML, we were actually giving different options like, is it the car? Is it the bus? Is it walking? And then we've also got our plane. And is it the tram? Let's save. And we can even display our options and change our message. Our options are. Okay, so we got our options are bus, and something's not looking good here. So, oh, that should be options, sorry. Forgot to change my name of the property. So options are car, bus, walking, plane, and tram. I might get rid of this line here just so that the correct answer. Yeah, I'll get rid of that. Right. Okay. What is one more thing is about the constant. So what does constant mean? If we were able to change the value of our existing properties, so we can change any of these. We can even add more to our object. So I've added another property, name and value. But we can also, but one thing we cannot do is we can't make this object link to another object. Like name is equal to test. So making this object refer to a whole new object is not permitted. So we can see here we've got an error, and if we go all the way down at this line and I hover the mouse over it, let me just slightly make this bigger. And if I put the mouse over this, it'll tell me that, just a second. So if I hover the mouse, it says type error, invalid assignment to constant MCQ. So that's what constant means, is you can't really change where this object is referring to. But you can change the content of this object later on, but you can't give it a new object. Alright, so I hope this helps you with what constant means and how to create an object in JavaScript, and I'll see you in the coming ones.